On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Clayburgh Reynolds Foundation, a Texas family providing innovative funding since 1979. On Story, presented by Austin Film Festival, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers and filmmakers. This week's On Story, Se7en screenwriter Andrew Kevin Walker.
The idea for it came first, and then all the research followed. Like, I could have said, like, I know what the 7 deadly sins are, but I couldn't have told you who St. Thomas Aquinas was or how it played into, Dante's Purgatory, etc. So the research took place after the idea, and it was there to buttress the idea. And the great thing about research is it gives you ideas for what the content is.
In this episode, Andrew Kevin Walker dissects his bleak thriller masterpiece, 7.
There are 7 deadly sins, Captain. Gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, pride, lust, and envy. 7.
Hold on. That's not even my desk.
You can expect 5 more of these.
Fincher had accidentally been sent my first draft. And so he said, "Oh, I'm interested in this." Fincher was and is incredibly collaborative. He's one of the people who considers, I always say if he had the patience, he could just write it himself. He's exceedingly specific, which as a writer you will and do find incredibly wonderful. You'd never get like, make it 15% scarier or 10% funnier. He's incredibly specific. He's incredibly specific with dialogue and stuff. You just end up scribbling everything down, kind of hoping that you get all the great ideas he has. He has a point of view for every single scene. He has you participate in the process. He doesn't understand why somebody would come in and see a blueprint that you've done for a beautiful yacht and why they would want to come in and make that into a house instead. So, and the other great thing about him is you'll proceed along the lines writing something for Fincher specifically, and then you take it to the powers that be. And if they don't want to make it, you just go, okay, let's not make it. He doesn't bend over backwards to try and make it into a different thing, but he's amazing, and as evidenced by his work, and he elevates material as evidenced by what he did to 7, because he exceeded my expectations in every way. It was in the script that you didn't see the things happen, and that just seemed to me more horrifying, to have to sit and imagine what it was like if you were forced at gunpoint to eat as much spaghetti as possible. And we've all been there without the gun. And I do think it's funny to see movies like Saw and other stuff come later that kind of like took the opposite approach, that I feel like, and I've kind of had it confirmed a little bit by the writers of Saw, that was somewhat inspired by 7, except let's sit there and like wallow in watching this person get tortured. I'm not against, graphic horror or any of that stuff. I just think that this is much more appropriate that so much of this stuff not be seen. But the test screenings were 50-50. Some people really liked it, but 50% really hated it and said that we were damned to hell for making it and stuff like that. So we knew we were on to something. I like the idea of a guy who, the main character being this pessimist, who's constantly arguing for the world is, and then when it's thrust into his face that he's absolutely right, it's the last thing that he wants to have confirmed, and he kind of trudges back to kind of continue the battle. I don't know how sharply that's defined in the end, but that was kind of the thing for me. And it was kind of like that choice, like whatever your difficulty in life, are you going to keep fighting it, or are you going to kind of give up? So you're seeing Somerset is wearying of the stuff and being kind of overly intellectualizing stuff that other people just want to kind of forget and brush aside.
Crime of passion.
Yeah. Just look at all the passion on that wall.
Yeah, well, this is a done deal. I'll with the paperwork.
The kid see it?
What?
The kid.
Question is that? You know, we are all going to be real glad when we get rid of you, Somerset. You know that? It's always these questions with you. Did the kids see it? Who gives a He's dead. His wife killed him. Anything else has nothing to do with us.
The piece that's missing, which is totally fine, is you're not seeing his intention. His intention to leave gets expressed later. When they meet in what has consistently been, you know, kind of pointed out as a very cliched, like, look, the old guy and now the young guy's coming in. I mean, I didn't really think about it in those terms when I wrote it. I just thought, you know, here's the young guy coming in and this old guy kind of has to train him up a little bit, which is complete ridiculousness. But, and the one guy's saying, let's just go to the bar and drink. And the other guy's going, I'm going to make a difference. Let's go get our shields and swords and start fighting. You know, it's just like, that's the conflict, obviously, I wanted to establish, that Morgan's character is constantly being pulled in every single scene, hopefully, towards staying and fighting the good fight, which he's tired of fighting and doesn't feel like he's making a difference, and leaving and giving up, where Mills is more one-sided, which is, yeah, let's fight the good fight. I can make a huge difference. And there is a part of him that's plagued by, you know, well, what if I don't make a difference? And what if I'm not big enough time to make a difference here or fight the good fight here? And the thing that's really hard for Mills is the person reinforcing that doubt is Somerset throughout. And you'll see other scenes where that's the thematic thing, obviously, throughout.
Calvin, love costs. It takes effort and work.
We are talking about people who are mentally ill. We are talking about people crazies.
No,
Yes.
we're not. No.
Today.
We're talking about everyday life here. You can't afford to be this naive.
See, you should listen to yourself. Yeah, you say that the problem with people is that they don't care. So I don't care about people. That makes no sense. You know why?
You care.
You want to know? Damn right.
And you're gonna make a difference.
Whatever. The point is that I don't think you're quitting because you believe these things you say. I don't. I think you want to believe them because you're quitting.
It seems to have worked so that people came into a movie seeing something they thought was familiar, and they're like, oh, I know where this is going to go. So that helps, you know, because hopefully there's some of it that in an earned way, hopefully, which is the hard part of it, there are surprises that lie ahead. Yeah, it's like, it's another version of that, not just the Mills conflict, Somerset's conflict, them interacting with that conflict that's supposed to define every scene of anything you're writing, and supposed to be the thing that really only gets solved and, you know, kind of falls one way or the other at the end. And that's what happens, hopefully, in the end. You know, I'm all about like trying to show, like, look, without using words, he's in conflict. Look at Mills struggling and Tracy, you know, Gwyneth's character, watching the struggle. Look at the guy who's saying, I don't want anything to do with this case, spending the entire night going and creating a little packet that's just to try and guide the guy he doesn't want to be involved with, Mills, on the right path. This scene's very much about two guys in the story now who have gone, no, good luck with that case. I'm done with it. And look at the effort to make the audience yearn, obviously, for these two guys to reconnect. But there's no way back yet. But yeah, it was just meant to, it's also paralleling in many ways, from here and in other places, exactly what I was doing in researching this script. I was reading the cliff notes of Chaucer and the research from Benet's Reader's Encyclopedia about St. Thomas Aquinas, the pillar of kind of sins from Purgatory was literally from a Penguin paperback at the time. Like, what Somerset is doing there is all the stuff I was doing before I wrote the script. And then the beauty is I'm much more the Brad Pitt Mills character, intelligence-wise, but I can show enough little pieces to seem like, oh, the person who wrote this is more like Somerset. He's a genius, which is not true. Going back to the scene of Somerset meeting Mills for the very first time, I remember being on that set that day and one of the producers saying, like, what's the conflict? Who's the villain? And we were saying, well, they're struggling to maintain their sanity and they're struggling to, existentially live their lives, which never goes over well when somebody's saying, who's the villain?
You actually fought to get reassigned here. I've just never seen it done that way before.
Thought I could do some good. Look, it would be great for me if we didn't start out kicking each other in the... But you're calling the shots, Lieutenant.
Yes. I want you to look and I want you to listen, okay?
Now, I wasn't standing around guarding the Taco Bell. I've worked homicide 5 years.
Not here.
I understand that.
Well, over the next 7 days, detective, you'll do me the favor of remembering that.
That's what the movie's about. There's definitely a great villain, but there's also a real effort to make the villain a force that we would only encounter with the cops. If you hadn't seen Tracy, Gwyneth's character watching Mills struggle, you wouldn't have earned it as much. And then this whole, these two guys, you could imagine in such a crowded precinct house, have to share this tiny space, even though they're not each other's favorite person, but they still don't want to kind of share the case. And I love that she's the one that comes along and provides this kind of chance to save her husband in a way. And it's, again, I'll talk time and time again about knowing your ending and knowing what the ramifications of making her so crucial to what the audience wants, which is these guys to work together. And so with very little screen time, hopefully you fall in love with her too. And there lies the tragedy of it. What happens to Tracy is awful, and it could be seen as a misogynistic or seen from many different ways. But we certainly tried to make her a living, breathing character, not just in that scene where they go to dinner together, where Somerset goes over to their house and has dinner with them. And, again, there are weird ad-lib things or other things that make it more real. Those dogs in the other room that are all under paper are Brad's dogs that Fincher just put in the scene. The subway thing was in the script. Their relationship, kind of came naturally, just as it did in real life at the time, between Gwyneth and Brad. And then there's the scene where Gwyneth is talking to Somerset and confiding, that's me. Gwyneth, of all the characters, are me going, I don't like it here. It's scary.
David and I are gonna have a baby.
Oh, Tracy, I don't think I'm the one to talk to about this.
I hate this city.
The other thing I was going to say about what happens to Tracy is it's the only thing that the excuse I make is it's the thing that John Doe knows he has to do to make sure that the policeman becomes the seventh deadly sin, basically. That was the germ of the entire, idea when I first thought of it, that there would be these 7 deadly sins and the cop would be the last one. Everything grew from that idea. I do watch this scene and feel it's incredibly melodramatic, kind of claptrap that the actors manage to make work, if it does work at all.
I had a relationship once. It was very much like a marriage. We got pregnant. This was a long time ago. I remember getting up one morning and going to work. Just another day like any other, except it was the first day after I knew about pregnancy. And I felt this fear for the first time ever.
I also was like probably 26 when I wrote this script. And like I say, just a day or two ago, I was looking through the notebooks. That scene was still there. Probably Fincher was the one that decided to move it. I don't know whether it got moved ever in the rewriting. But yeah, I mean, it does serve a lot of purposes because that's one of the most devastating like things in the very end that even John Doe didn't know that the only person who knows is Somerset. And so it added a different level of heartbreak in the end. And it was a card that even John Doe didn't have to play, but ended up playing kind of by accident. But it's a weird scene, but it expressed a lot of things about, I had moved to New York City, and again, it was the New York City of the late 80s, because I couldn't afford to move out to Los Angeles. I couldn't afford a car. I moved with some friends who were moving to New York. I was doing it because I was like, if I want to work in the film industry, if I really want to try and be a screenwriter or whatever, I have to be in New York or LA, I felt. And so I was every day kind of going, am I going to really keep living here and kind of just scraping by and PAing on movies like, Abusement Park or whatever? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And that's the kind of struggle that the characters are going through. Is it worth it? She's there for Mills. And I think she's an incredibly noble person, even down to the little details like being a teacher, which I think is a noble profession, et cetera. But she's kind of intimating that she gave that up. But you see like a really ridiculous line, like, if you have the kids, spoil them. And her reaction to that saves it.
If you don't keep the baby, if that's your decision, don't ever tell them that you were pregnant. But if you choose to have this baby, then you spoil that kid every chance you get.
I think that when you're writing anything, you kind of inappropriately come up with funny moments throughout. It's more like trying to weed those out. I think you throw in the ones that you feel will, kind of endear your characters to the audience, hopefully, and to each other. Like, a lot of it probably comes from ad libs. Like there's a certain point where Mills says, just because he's smart doesn't make him Yoda. And that was an ad lib by Brad. And I said to Fincher, really, Yoda? And he was like, yeah, think about it. That's the smartest person Mills knows. I was like, okay.
This guy's methodical, exacting, and worst of all, patient.
He's a nutbag. Just because of got a library card doesn't make him Yoda.
There are those, and those are always the ones that are the most kind of powerfully humor-filled. But I do remember it was written in the script that when they were waiting for the pink fingerprints or whatever, that they had just kind of sacked out on the couch, and by the morning they had fallen asleep on each other. It's just stuff like that you want to make the characters uncomfortable. So it comes naturally, sometimes I think inappropriately at certain moments. And humor before something horrible happens, it just is always a great thing because you put the audience a little more off guard. There was always a time when they would happen upon him. I wanted to earn the way they happened upon him. It weirdly parallels kind of the whole thing that the government was doing. Like kind of, well, look at this person. They like bombs and they're studying about this. Because the library thing is all about who's reading about serial killing, whose hero is Charles Manson, etc. So it's trying to earn the cool way to get to go like, it can't be this guy. Oh, it is this guy.
Name off a computer.
Mills.
If I had written that sequence as detailed as it is, I would be fired. It would be like 20 pages long. It would be like, there's a woman who looks out and then she points. Like, I remember sitting with Fincher and designing the scene with him. You can't You gotta write an incredible action scene, hopefully, that hints at what it'll be like, but you're not there with the stunt coordinator, you're not there with the director, so you're just trying to give the essence of, like, look how cool this could be. So it was very different in the script until we sat down, like, and piece by piece put it together. I remember sitting at Fincher's house and doing that. Again, like, look at what Fincher did with that. Look at how Brad, as an actor, is willing to let his character be so humiliated and then carry that questioning of all his bravado kind of forward, and knowing the ending that John Doe has to leave him alive because he's the puzzle piece. So it's all just kind of a lot of beautiful kismet.
No!
I've called before. Get yourself an answer machine.
Detective.
After this, I'm gone.
No big surprise.
You're looking for me.
Hey! What's your move? Keep away from him! On the floor!
I know you.
Now! Get out! Get down! On your stomach, you piece of shit. Now! All the way! All the way! Down! Faster! 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 Now! Toes on the ground! Jesus Christ. What is this?
I'd like to speak to my lawyer, please.
God!
Thing that's so horrible here is that's Tracy's blood all over him, and that's the guy's wife's blood. It was just the idea was this is going to be the end of the second act, because I'm big on outlining, and like I said, I've said this many other places, but the whole idea was to go to suck all the air out of the movie, to not let the audience have any satisfaction in finding this guy, and then have to deal with that going forward. And luckily, it was one of the things that Fincher said when he read it. You know, it left him going, oh, I have no idea what the next 25, 30 pages are going to be. And that, to me, is a thing that isn't, again, it has to be earned, and hopefully it is here. There are places I could definitely quibble with what happens from here on out in the story. But Culbertson was saying at the time, you know, look, we're never, ever going to make a movie with a head in a box. It's never going to happen. I was like, okay, well, that's kind of the whole ending. You know, there were suggestions all along, like as we went further down the road, even when Fincher was involved, maybe a van can pull up at the end and there'll be a TV inside, and on that closed circuit TV, it shows that Tracy's in trouble, but then we can go rescue her. Like, there was all these efforts to try and weasel out of this, you know, ending that was the only appropriate ending as far as I was concerned. Earning surprise and surprising an audience going in and whether it happens from the midpoint on or the third act on or 10 pages in on is a thing that I value a great deal, that I think is undervalued kind of overall. But that idea of taking a genre and turning it on its head, or knowing what the expectation is with the genre, is an important part of outlining. And that's the whole idea, was just to go, hey, audience, you know, Morgan Freeman's character said it literally, this is not going to have a happy ending. So you've been warned. And whenever we tested it, I always thought, as long as people make it through the lust murder, because the lust murder is so heinous, then probably people won't walk out. So that was always the point whereby we lost a few people in test screenings. But like, this is just like, this is the buzzsaw that the audience is going to walk into. And thank God people like Fincher and Brad and Morgan and Mike DeLuca and others who I'm neglecting to name, and I should name them all, fought for the ending that remained.
What the you talking about? Give me your gun. What's going on over there?
Put the gun down.
I saw you with the box. What was in the box?
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
Oh, what's in the box?
I tell you, give me the
What's
gun.
in the box?
Give me the gun.
He just told you.
You lie! You're a liar! Shut up!
That's what he wants. He wants you to shoot him.
No! No! You tell me that's not true. That's not true.
Become vengeance, David.
No, she's all right. You tell me.
Become wrath.
Tell me she's all right!
She murdered a suspect, David.
No!
Just throw it all away, you know.
No!
She begged for her life, Detective.
Shut up!
She begged for her life.
Shut up.
And for the life of the baby inside of her.
Shut up!
On Story is part of a growing number of programs in Austin Film Festival's On Story project, including the On Story PBS series, now streaming online, the On Story radio program and podcast in collaboration with Public Radio International, and the On Story book series available on Amazon. To find out more about On Story and Austin Film Festival, visit onstory.tv or austinfilmfestival.com.